All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Love Rising podcast. This week, it's just Kylie and I, which we're super excited about because I don't think we've done one just us in a really long time, and of at least a full length kind of full episode. And so we decided today we're going to talk about the fact that we're 30 and that there are some things we may or may not know. Um, because of that, or just what that feels like to be 30 and what we feel like we've learned on a few different levels. And we decided to, both of us, I think, use this wheel to kind of help our clients measure their success. You could call it that, or their progress. And it's called the life balance wheel. I think that's what I call it. Is that what you call it, Kylie?
Wellness wheel.
Wellness wheel. And it's kind of this circle, and it's this idea that there's these different categories of our life, and if we can get kind of evenly, if we can feel good in all of them, then we'll feel really good overall. And those categories are spiritual, emotional, intellectual, physical, social, environmental, and financial. So it's kind of this idea, and it's a good way to measure how, if we're making changes to our lives, do these categories improve, right? And if they do, over time, we know we made a good decision, right? So we ask our client, at least this is how I do it, I ask my clients to fill it out at the beginning of our work together, and then either I'll ask them to fill it out at the end, or midway or something, just to kind of give us a feeling for like, oh, look at that, I really improved on the intellectual area, or I really improved in my physical area. But also so that we're not getting obsessed with one area, that we're really making sure we remember that health is a plethora of things, not just one thing, not just our body or not just our mental health. It's like everything all together. So we thought we would go through the wheel together and talk about what we've learned, what our kind of thoughts are on it at this point, and just kind of go back and forth and see, and hopefully that's helpful and you guys find it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start with spiritual, or should we start with something? Maybe we should end with spiritual. What do you think?
I was thinking that too, actually. Yeah, maybe we should circle back to that one.
Okay,
Skip on forward to emotional.
cool. Emotional. So you go first, Kylie, on emotional.
Yeah, I think actually, Clara and I have been doing some podcasts lately, and just talking a lot about kind of this emotional roller coaster that is life, and kind of settling on this idea of how can we almost allow our emotions to happen and experience them, but let them happen on more of a balanced plane versus sometimes I have really, really high emotions, and then sometimes I feel really, really low. And really, what it comes down to is when we experience these emotions, there's always a vibration that matches your emotion. So when you're feeling down, your vibration is going to be down. When you're feeling a little bit elevated, high, excited on life, high on life, your vibration is going to be higher. And so it's okay to feel those ups and downs, I think. But when we become more enlightened, and I feel like I have been extremely enlightened in just 30 years. I can't wait to see another 30 years what happens, but I need to become more aware and more present with my emotions versus letting them kind of rule me, but more so being present with them and noticing I'm feeling this way. These emotions are approaching me. Why am I feeling this way? And are these emotions, am I letting these emotions kind of identify or determine who I am and the mood that the way I'm going to show up? Or am I being in charge of my emotions and looking at them from kind of an objective standpoint, so like watching myself feel these emotions and then just be okay with them, and sometimes be okay with the feelings of the sadness or the frustration, or even the emotions of just really dark emotions. Sometimes it's okay, but not letting them be in charge and not letting them take the wheel. One thing I've truly learned, and this is probably, I love this aha moment because I hope people can relate to this, but for many of my years, I'm a very emotional person. I cry a lot. I have breakdowns, and actually, to be honest, the essential oils that I use have helped me immensely with balancing that out and kind of helping hone that anxiety and those emotions of just gripping sadness and unquestionable, like this dark space that I don't know how to climb out of. And I think that for many years people would just be like, oh, you're so emotional, or things like that, and I almost took it as like there's something wrong with me, like I shouldn't be that emotional. And so I would find myself saying, maybe not being emotional in front of people, or if I was feeling really down, not showing it because I was supposed to be happy and because I didn't want to be a burden to feel this way. And my sister is actually amazing. She pointed out to me one day that it's okay for you to feel these emotions. It's okay for you to go through these bouts or experience that, because she said, Kai, you connect on such a deep, compassionate level with other people that most people aren't able to connect with, but that's why people feel so open and so comfortable with you. And so I think because I'm a very compassionate person, I've kind of like hindered that for so long. And now that I've approached my 30s and I've kind of examine that, I noticed that it's okay to feel those emotions. It's okay to let them come out. And you know what? I'm a very compassionate person. I'm an emotional person, and that allows other people to connect so deeply with me. And so instead of feeling ashamed of that, I really kind of own that emotion. So that's kind of my experience with emotions over the years. Because I am an emotional person, this one really does resonate with me, and I do need to just allow myself to watch those emotions to keep them in check, so that they don't allow my physical and my intellectual and everything else kind of spiral out of control.
Yeah. I love that. It's kind of similar, like this quote came to mind from The Alchemist, that is, the resistance, I think the quote itself is, tell your heart that the resistance to suffering is so much worse than the suffering itself. And I think that's something that I have really grounded in my experience, in 30 years, is that when you feel a certain way, the resistance to feeling it is so much worse than just feeling it. And I think we hear this all the time in personal development, is like, feel the feelings, experience the emotions. And I think it's sometimes hard, like, what does that actually mean? Because like Kylee was saying, we don't want to just identify with them. We don't want to follow them down the path and have them almost be like this weight that just like drags everything down with it. Our mood, our intellectual abilities, our connection to people, our spirituality, like, that's not what we mean when we say feel the emotions. It just means that we don't resist them, right? So there's this aspect of ourself that is kind of observing what's going on, right? So there's like this feeling of, okay, I feel, let's say like this just happened to me. I got really delayed and I missed my connection. And the emotion that came up was like to cry, to be, this isn't fair. I just want to go home. Why does this always happen? Like, why is the world so hard? That like whole story. So when I feel the emotions, it's not that I like go to a corner and have a tantrum in the airport, or I yell at the gate agent or something. Just count a little bit so you can edit that out. So what I wanted to talk about here with this 30 years is that, it's not so much when we say feel the emotions, it doesn't mean go into a dark place and just, kind of let everything get sucked into that like black hole of sadness. And I'm also not saying that if you do that there's something wrong with you, because that's a really easy thing to do. But really what I've learned in 30 years is that let's just observe them. Let's just like not get it's this attachment to state in Buddhism is what it's called. So we get attached to a really high level state. So we feel really good and we're like going around like, I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose this happiness. Or we feel really bad and we're like, nothing is ever going to be good. I'm never going to get any better. And we get like these attachments to like these two states. But the idea is that we want to be more observational, right? And that's really what I found helps me the most, is to feel the feelings in the way that I observe the feelings and I don't resist them. I'm like, wow, look at this part of me. I am really upset about getting delayed at the airport. That's crazy. Wow. There's like a part of me that wants to cry. I did cry actually in this situation. I did cry because because it was upsetting. But it doesn't mean that like it ruined my entire like week, right? Or it ruined my entire night even. I just, I moved on. It was like, okay, I got to get a hotel room. All right, that's cool. I get to sleep in a hotel room, comfy bed. Like, there's good stuff about any situation. And I was able to see that because I didn't get like dragged down. So yeah, I mean, there's so much I could say, but the thing for me is like, I talk about this all the time in my work, is like, don't get stagnated, right? Don't latch on to those emotions and then continue, like ride them, right? Ride, like let them flow, let them open your heart and allow the emotion to be there and just observe it, because the resistance to the emotion is so much more painful than just being like, wow, I'm really sad right now. There's a part of me that's really sad right now. And open up and energetically allow that to flow through you, because we only really start to feel that, like that struggle, when we close our heart up and we start to protect ourselves and say, no, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel that. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's so much depth within emotions, and emotions are a beautiful thing. So
yeah, and by all means, that's also something I did want to say, is like, it's not about not having them. Like, I want the full range of emotions. And like Kylie said, like, it helps us connect to people. Like, if we can be soft and let our emotions flow and let other people see that, like, that is the key to real, true connection with another person, is connecting on a joyful level, on a sad level. Like, this is where the healing really comes, is when we allow each other to see those soft parts and we connect, through those soft parts of ourselves. And so in no way am I saying that we shouldn't feel or have emotions. I want anger. I want sadness. I want all of these things. They're a beautiful guidance system for where I need to go, right? So I want them, and we should all want them. We shouldn't try to like shun them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's it makes me think of, we are human, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so like our spiritual beings are they don't experience the range of emotions that we do as human beings. So how cool for us to experience that, and how this is getting a little woo-woo, but how cool for us to be on earth to be experiencing these range of emotions, which our spiritual side doesn't really even do that. And so we get to learn from them. And so those emotions become our learning guide, as you said, so I think that's something also kind of cool to chat about.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think that, we came to this earth, on this plane, in this existence, to experience and learn. And the strong emotional pulls that we get in this human form are part of that. Because it's true. Like, in spiritual form, we're just kind of like floating in bliss, which is awesome. But we came here to grow and to bring love where there has been no love before. So we have to love those experiences, those highs and lows, everything.
Yeah. So as far as intellectual, the cool thing about, I want to say, this podcast is, it's really taken me to like furthering my intellectual conversations with other people. And so I'm so grateful for that. For a long time, I just always thought, going back to one of my sister, her and her husband are professors. So a lot of times I belittled myself, not feeling like I was intellectually enough. But something that I've learned is I think intellect is very individualized, because something that feels like an intellectual conversation to me might not feel intellectual to another person because they don't resonate with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've come to terms with that, because I don't resonate with a lot of political talk. I just don't. And so like that, why that is intellectual conversation or things like that could be for somebody. For me, it doesn't feel that way. Whereas when we talk about like being spiritual beings and having an experience here and like those kind of conversations, I feel like my intellect is heightened. But also, and this might be a little bit more on the social side, I don't know, but something that just came to mind was that small talk kind of bores me. And I've come to be okay with that. For a long time, it bothered me. Like, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have nothing to say back because small talk just kind of bores me. So I've just become okay with that a little bit more. And I also have become okay with the silence in between. So I used to feel like we always had to be talking if I was with somebody, and I've come to notice that the depth of conversation followed by silence to gather our thoughts is a really beautiful exchange of words with another person. And so I've kind of come to appreciate the silence, to just be there and let information come in and let our ideas settle within our intellectual conversations. And so that's something that more recently I've been kind of noticing and exploring, is just being okay with the silence in between, instead of just constant small talk.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I love that. When we were writing this out and I was thinking about the intellectual aspect of my life, I feel like it is, in terms of talking about this as like a balance wheel of life and like how are you intellectually stimulated? Because I think that's kind of where it comes up, like for my clients, is like that they don't, like when they get low scores in this, it's like that they're not challenged at work, or they don't have a partner that wants to talk about the same things that interest them. And so I feel like from that level, for me at 30 years, like I am very intellectually stimulated. I have a lot of interests that I get to explore through work. And I'm lucky to have a partner that also is interested in the same thing. So we get to have really good conversations. My parents are very intellectual. They're also professors. And so I grew up kind of in these, small intellectual conversations around the dinner table. And that is and I've realized that, my husband is excited about the things I'm excited about, but he doesn't always have the stamina or like almost, I don't want to say argumentative, but like very debating type language and conversation. And I've really noticed that like deep conversations are they're like a comforting thing for me. It's like some people, I don't know, it's like what you grew up around, right? It can be comforting. And so in the 30 years, I think I used to try to like dumb myself down, or I felt like too much, like I was too much. I wanted to explore these topics too deeply. Why do I need to talk about these things in such detail? And I've just kind of been like, in my 30 years, it's like, well, this is like who I am and what I like to do. And yes, I would much rather, I don't do well with small talk. If you ask any of my friends or my husband or anyone that knows me, it's like, I like go in, like I will not, I go deep fast kind of. And that's just what I'd rather do. So sometimes it's hard for me to understand when people don't want to do that. But I've kind of, learned, I think like the overall theme of this, like, what did I learn in 30 years? It's going to be like that I'm fine, like that I'm okay the way I am. And it's okay for me to be who I am. And So that's where this is too, the intellectualization. It's like, I love those intellectual conversations. I know that for me to be happy, I need a lot of intellectual stimulation. So it means I read a lot. It means I find people that are willing to talk about stuff with me and go deep. I, thank the people around me for having these conversations and for sticking through with like, a topic that I might really want to get into at the time. And I just know that makes me happy. So, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something too, yeah, is taking responsibility for your intellect too, because like I said, we all have different things that spark in us that we want to dive deep in with other people. And so for us to be stimulating ourselves through podcasts, through books, things like that, that really sparks an intellectual spark, I feel like, in me. And so if you're feeling like you're struggling intellectually, a lot of times I just say, what are you doing? Because even if you feel like you're not really surrounded by a lot of people who will have an intellectual conversation, there's plenty of opportunity for you to go out and find something that stimulates you, whether it be a book or a podcast or a YouTube channel or something like that. So
yeah. One of the things that really, I would say, was like a huge pivot point for me as far as like personal development work was a book called The Way of Mastery, and a discussion group that I had every Thursday night in Denver for almost 3 years. I went religiously, and it was like I had never gotten that kind of intellectual stimulation before. And it was so awesome, and I loved it so much. And I actually miss it a lot, like not being able to do that. But anyway, that's just an example of like something that, go try out that book club, or go try out that meetup or something, that you have around that you've kind of maybe been playing around doing or exploring. Like, it can be something that could be really huge for that intellectual stimulation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good one. Cool. All right. The physical body. Another good one.
Mm-hmm. So I definitely have to say that my goal at 30 was to love my body more than I ever have. And I truly do feel like I feel my best. I look my best. I love my body more than I ever have in my entire life. And that's a really freeing feeling. And I think it's kind of a combination of just like getting sick of my own BS around body shame and just appreciating like, holy shit, my body can do some seriously amazing things. And so I need to respect it. I need to treat it with so much TLC and stop saying poo-poo things about it because they're not true. And so that was that was just like a really freeing thing for me as I approached my 30s, was to just truly love my body so much, and not like only about how it looks, but the things that it can do. And because I feel like I've created such a deepened relationship with my body, it really allows me to slow down when I need to, and then push really hard when I need to, and realize that a slow walk on a day that feels right is just as beneficial on a day that I feel like I can go into a heavy lifting session. And just being okay with kind of going back to like, there's kind of a theme here, right? The ups and downs that we talked about in the emotion. It's kind of the same with our physical bodies. It's like some days I'm here and some days I'm revved it up, and some days I'm really chill. Like this morning I went for a couple-mile walk with my dog, and it was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I got back and I was just like, that's exactly what I needed. It just allows me to tune in, listen, and then as I continue to give my body what it needs, my body speaks to me more, and it tells me more clearly what it needs. I pay attention to the aches, to the pains, to the butterflies, to the little nudges, and because of that, it allows me to go for the walk, feel the wind on my skin, and feel the beauty and the pleasure of that, and just being completely present and a little bit less judgmental allows me to enjoy my body more fully, because our bodies are amazing, And one thing that kind of stood out to me was when I read You Are a Badass quite a few years ago, and she said like something about, and I'm paraphrasing, but we run around all day, like letting our bodies flap around us, behind us in the wind. And it's like, and then somebody on our podcast, I can't remember who, but they said like our bodies show up for us day after day, like no matter what we do to them, no matter what we feed them, no matter what we say to them. Like, I mean, yes, you could say, well, yeah, your body will eventually give out if you keep going that route. But for a long period of time, our bodies just like freaking hang on sometimes. So it's like, what a beautiful gift we're given, our bodies. And so how can I treat it with so much respect and so much love so that I can be a vessel to go out in the world and spread and do my job and do my passion and what I'm put here on earth to do? Because if my body's not jiving with that, I'm not able to do that. So at the end of the day, it's how can I love my body in a really physical way, in a really beautiful way. But also I wanted to touch on being okay and not having any judgments around listening to what our bodies want. So when it comes to pleasure, being okay with we are pleasurable beings. And so I think that pleasure is something that we really need to allow our bodies and give our bodies as kind of a way to refuel them as well. So in 30 years, I want to say that my body is rad. I love my body.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much all I was going to say too. Is like, it's a precious, like I even, in the first 25 years of my life, I put my body through hell. And I am just in the last 5 years, so from 25 to 30, I am, I'm in total 180 with the way I feel like it's like what I imagine a mother must feel for their child. That's how I feel towards my body. Like it's like this deep, unconditional love and just awe, like, and appreciation. And, I talk a lot about in my work, like the inner mean girl. And I have that voice, like we all do, but it just doesn't even have any power anymore. It's like this like weird static. Like I hear it sometimes and I'm like, what? Like this precious thing? Are you serious? Like this is like, yeah, my temple, they say that like the body is the house of the soul. And it's like, it truly is like a temple. And every year too, like I learn even more and more about the subconscious ways I might have been desecrating that temple. Right. So there's a lot of that going on. You guys hear my dog.
Hi,
and so, yeah. And I think of it, the way that I've learned to think of it is as a communication device. So it's this precious communication device, and it is so much smarter than my mind. I think that's a huge piece that that women will go through their entire lives. I have a client who is 80 something, and she is still struggling with this body stuff. And it's like, girl, your body is so much smarter than your mind. Like, start listening, start tapping in, start doing the little things that can, create a connection with your body, because she will tell you exactly what you need, no doubt. And if you're out there thinking, not my body's broken, my body doesn't know these things, my body just wants to eat pizza and ice cream all the time and doesn't want to exercise, trust me, she doesn't. Trust me, she wants exactly what is best for you, and she knows exactly how to get it too. And so but it is a process. It is a remembering. It's putting back together the language. Remembering the language that our body speaks is a process for sure. And we have to be open to that. But she is a communication device. And you'll see that I kind of have this, it's like this interesting detachment, right? And that's something that's come a lot in 30 years is is the body is not who I am, right? This is my body. But I think, like I said, it's like this, it's almost like this parent relationship. It's like, oh, this precious thing that is in awe, that I'm in love with unconditionally, but is not who I am, right? And we're so much more than our bodies. If my purpose is to be this body, like, then that's not, it's just like, I know my purpose is so much more, and I know I am so much more. And so that's something that I think has come with time, and is something that you'll find as you do this work, that you start to like detach from it a little bit. And it's interesting because we're learning the language, we're connecting in, but I also think of like my arm as the arm. Like, this isn't like my arm exactly. Like, this is like a beautiful communication device that I just happen to like live in. And then that gives you this like sense of awe, right? When you're not so entrenched in like, this is who I am. I don't know if that makes sense, but it helps a lot. And I actually have a practice that I give to clients called the body exercise, where you just look at your body throughout the day and you say, look at the hand, or the shoulder hurts, or the body is walking now. And you'll be surprised at how much easier it is to like have that loving relationship towards it when you're just in awe of what it's doing, instead of feeling like it's you.
Oh, that's so good. Social.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
I mean, I think I can go first, because I think mine's pretty short, and it's just that, like, I think it's what we've said a lot before, and it's just that, like, it feels so much better to be me than anyone else. And I learn daily how to be tactful and kind, and I never want to make anyone feel bad. It really is my goal to make every person I come in contact with, happier. But that doesn't mean that I will ever, like, I have nothing to prove, nothing to apologize for. I'm a good person with good intentions. And I will say sorry. I'll be the first to say sorry if I ever like do anything rude or hurt anyone's feelings. But I also have learned in 30 years that I'm going to be so much better person in the world if I don't feel guilty about who I am and what I stand for and how I show up. And so for me, like, socially, I think that this is probably something that comes like even more so like as we age, but it's just like, I don't need to fit in. I don't need to be anything different than I am. And so that's just like how I am learning every day to show up socially. It's like, just as me. That's it.
Yeah, it's true. I think I've learned that it's really okay to be alone. Like, I had a hard time transitioning to that. And now that I'm okay with it, and now that I'm here, I'm like, thank God I got over that, because I just, like, it's okay to be alone. And it's okay to just be with this, maybe just a smaller group of people that you love. Kind of as I've approached this time of my life, I'm finally okay with saying no. Like, when I want to be around people, I will. But a lot of times I tend to be an intro extrovert. And so a lot of times I just want to be alone. I mean, like, obviously my partner, I love to be with him. And so, like, a lot of times if there's something going on and we say no, being together is okay, but also just being by myself and not having that, people joke about FOMO, and I'm like, it's not that great of a joke. Like, do you really have fear of missing out? Like, that's not, it's kind of like that idea of hangry. I'm like, oh, that's not good, but okay. And, I think another thing so yeah, definitely just totally okay with standing my ground and saying, like, I'm tired. I had a really busy week. My energy is spent. I just need to be alone. And sometimes even with my partner, he'll say, oh, we're going over to our friend's house tonight. And I'll be like, I'm going to let you go, but I'm just curling up with my dog. And, like, that's what I'm doing. And I'm not worried about missing out. And I'm just okay with that. I've also noticed that my tribe's gotten a lot smaller. And that is such a beautiful thing, because I feel like that allows me to give more love to my immediate tribe, the people that I love so dearly and so much, versus feeling like I have to reach out to a bunch of my friends and spread all this energy and spread all this love, where I can be almost more concentrated upon the people in my life that really are meaningful and are brought to me for a reason. And that's not to say I don't give love to everybody, I do, but I think I've gotten okay with just having like my closer tribe, and allowing myself to just really focus on spreading love to them. I also think that this is a really good example that I've noticed. I've experienced this year, and my mom actually just went through this, and so we were talking about it. First of all, loving people from a distance, being okay if like a friendship doesn't pan out the way you thought it would, or if somebody doesn't jive with you in the way that their energy feels good in your space, and just kind of being okay with loving them from a distance and not needing to communicate with them all the time. That's okay. I actually, both my mom and I went through this, like I said, where we have been putting effort into a friendship and not getting anything back. At one point we were really, really close with these two different people, and it was like I would reach out and I would call and there would be nothing coming back, and then maybe like a random text that's like, oh, hi. And I just kind of got to a point where I'm like, that's okay. I need to be okay with not expending my energy, and I'm here if that person needs me, and I'm filled with energy and I have good feelings around that person, but I just don't need to expend my energy just to make sure that we're still cool and that we're still good, because it doesn't serve me. And so I'm becoming more aware and okay with those relationships and just seeing who's there at the end of the day. But yeah, I love that, Clara, you just said showing up and being me.
Yeah.
No matter what social situation I'm in, just being me and being okay and being the light.
Yeah. I think what you were talking about is so important too, socially, because it's like, I think Maddie Moon talks about it a lot, but the sacred no and the sacred yes, like, is so important. And like, as we grow, as we mature, as we take on more and more responsibility, because that's kind of how I think of growth, is like taking on more influence, taking on more responsibility. What happens as we get older? We get more and more responsibilities, right? We have kids, we have jobs, we have businesses, we have partners, and doing that all with grace. And it's not something that our society is very good at. In a lot of ways, we are not a very mature society. I think we should be able to kind of like have it all, but a huge part of growth, especially socially, is to use that sacred no, is to build those beautiful boundaries so that you can keep your heart open. Danielle Laporte says, wide open heart, big fucking fence. And that's just like, it just means like, to protect you so that you can be the best you there is, and so, yeah, using that sacred no is definitely something that comes with age. I think it becomes easier. You get more practice, at just saying like, hey, this is my boundary, and this is who I am, and this is what I'm willing to do, and this is what I'm not willing to do. And just getting more and more familiar with those kind of boundaries and no's, and also using it, I think I definitely am still learning how to do that, but I've gotten way, way better at it to say no. Yeah. Awesome. Environmental.
Yeah. I was just actually noticing this morning. I was thinking about this because I went for a walk, as I said, and I'm learning to appreciate the seasons of Mother Nature, because we live in a cold place, and so it's easy to hate on winter when it gets long. But I'm really just learning to appreciate. Do you notice the cold and the warmth? So like there's that roller coaster again, but and just loving, appreciating the cold of winter, and it brings a little bit more of the coziness, the intimacy, and then for me the summer kind of opens up space and I can grow and bloom and be grounded and things like that. And so this morning when I was on the walk, I literally was just looking around me and I'm like, I ever feel not abundant? And we kind of talked about this on our podcast yesterday, but just like, I was like naming all the things like the grass and the trees. And I live in a farm area. And so it's like the plants that are literally sprouting out of the ground. And I looked at my dog and I'm like, I'm obsessed with him. He's freaking amazing. Like there is so much power in Mother Nature and just this environmental idea. And when we show up and we appreciate Mother Nature, she gives us so much back. And so I feel like that's kind of a big thing that I've learned is being slower. Whenever I'm outside, being slow and taking her in and being so grateful for her and being really mindful about even just environmental practices that we do, recycling and burning paper and things like that. And being like taking the time, yeah, sure, I guess it's easy to throw everything away, but taking the time to actually put those, to go out and create the fire from the paper that we burn and then, making it controlled and going out and picking the branches and doing that, or taking the time to recycle and then bring it in, or, those types of things too. So taking time for Mother Nature so that she continues to give back to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting when I think back on my 30 years and like my relationship with the environment, the earth. And I don't know if everyone knows this, but probably not. But like that was my passion. Like I'm a passionate cause driven person, obviously. And that was my cause. Like in high school and college was like, I graduated with a degree in resource conservation. Like that's what I was into. And partly because I grew up in Montana, a place that is abundant in wildness. And, you really, in a lot of ways, I feel like it's a place that you never really, it lives kind of on the edge of civilization. Like you live in Montana and maybe North Dakota too. It's like, if you get stuck in a snowstorm on the interstate, like you might not get home. Like there's not a lot of places in the US that actually is a threat, but that's actually a threat here. And, then there's floods and wildfires. And anyway, there's this appreciation for the power that comes from nature and how powerless we become. We walk around thinking we have all this control around our lives. And if we just do the right things, we'll end up with the right thing. But the truth is, like, we could die at any moment, like, and there could be a huge flood or a huge, Mother Nature is just so powerful. If you've ever been in like an earthquake or a hurricane or something, you've like experienced that like fear of like, it doesn't have to be fear, awe of like, wow, I'm not in control here and there's nothing I could do. And so that's something I love to offer, right? I love to, if I feel like that feeling of like, and this is something I've learned, in 30 years, is that I can always like, if I just break myself off from whatever I'm all worked up about and go outside and offer it up, like to the universe, to Mother Nature, to Mother Earth, like she can take it, and that's a really comforting thing for me to know and to utilize. And then the other piece of this for me is that like the microcosm is the macrocosm is the microcosm. Like just like when, going further than the earth and thinking of like the cosmos, like if you look at our atoms of our cells, like they look very much like the cosmos, right? So like we have to realize that we are so much more connected than we can even imagine, that our bodies are just like a little version of everything else, that our earth, we are like cells on Mother Earth. Like we're all connected, right? And that's what she shows us like every day through the environment. And so absolutely, that is our work as far as the environment and feeling connected to the environment, is like doing little things to conserve I think on a subconscious level, even if we don't notice it, if we don't do like the easy things, like turning off the water faucet, like recycling, doing these little things, buying biodegradable soaps and stuff like that. If we don't do those things on a subconscious level, we feel like we know we're hurting something, okay? Because when we hurt the earth, we hurt ourselves, because the microcosm is the macrocosm. And so we have to do everything in our power, especially as we get older and we start to be able to even like hold these concepts in our minds, because that's part of it. When we're younger, when we're throwing stuff out the window, I mean, I never did that, but people do that. You see like garbage on the side of the road. You're like, who does this? Like, is like, we're starting to hold these concepts. Like, that's a big concept to hold in your mind. And you kind of need a lot of experience and thought power to even fathom this, right? But like, as we get older and we take on more responsibility and we grow, we have to really start to recognize that we do have a responsibility, to our environment, and that it makes us feel good when we take care of it. And just the little things matter, like if you're into this kind of stuff, there's a beautiful book by Charles Eisenstein called The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. And it's about sacred activism, kind of on this front. And just, I think we can get really, I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but I think we can get really discouraged by the fact that like, oh yeah, I'm recycling. Like, that's really helping. And it's true. If you look at the statistics, like one person recycling doesn't really do much for the overall health of the world, but it's the intention behind it, and he really gets into that idea that like, yes, if we look at these things on this sterile logical level, they don't do that much, but it's the intention behind it. And if we had everyone's intention, that's when miracles happen. And we do in a lot of ways need a miracle to save the planet, even right now, the way it's going. And so anyway, check that book out. Think about it for yourself. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Even something as simple as, so I never used to do this when I was younger, because it's gross to think about picking up somebody else's garbage. But like, if I see something on the ground, like I actually like walk past something. This was like, probably, I remember, I don't know, last year or something. I remember walking past it and being like, I got to go back. Like, I know it's gross to pick it up, but I have to go back. There's a garbage right there. And so I know that sounds gross, but if you want to help make an impact, when you see garbage, I mean, yes, we can think like, who would do that? But like, what if you just slow down and took a second to like pick it up and throw it in the garbage for that person? And you know what? I believe in karma.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. And, obviously there's plenty of sinks to wash your hands in and use.
Yeah. Yeah. These are, I mean, those things, like they've done studies, and like happiness, people that do selfless things are way happier than people that don't. And so it's a great way, if you're feeling like really victimized and selfish and, in your own head, like to do something like that, or like hold a door for someone, or, these like really little things can make a huge difference in like our overall mood. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, finances. So financially, I would have, to be honest, if you would have asked me even 5 years ago, I would have been like, oh, I don't want to have that conversation. I don't want to talk about that. And so I'm really excited that I'm at a point in my life where I love talking about finances. I love learning about finances and continuing to improve my money mindset, because my mindset was not really great up until probably even a year ago. I remember I really dove in and I started working on it. And since that, the first true, like, yeah, I was doing little money mindset things, but the thing that really started shifting my money mindset was tapping. So I did EFT around enriching my money mindset. And since then, it's just been a beautiful process to watch myself feel more comfortable with finances, allow them to be more abundant, allow myself to be worth it, or, to like step into my worthiness. And at the end of the day, we have to remember, and I think this is such a beautiful way to think about it, but money is a responsibility, A, and B, money is just energy exchange. So when we maybe say like, oh, something, a service is really expensive. Well, we have to remember that the worthiness behind the service. But yeah, kind of going off at a tangent, lost my thought there. But at the end of the day, when we think about like finances being a responsibility, like, not to make you feel like, oh, finances, now I have to be responsible for those too, but you do, like, we do. And I think that it can be a beautiful responsibility to think like, it's my responsibility to make income so I can live the life that I want, so that I can be happy, so that when I interact with other people, I can be that beam of light for them because I'm not stressed out about finances. But also, yesterday we talked about the Stephanie Davies, who is going to be talking to us about abundance. She said, I've been broke as fuck, and I've been super abundant, and I've been super, super rich, and I've felt super not abundant. So really it becomes a mindset. And so we have to remember that mindset around finances. And I'm not saying that you need to be broke to be righteous, but you do need to realize that every thought we have about money creates the kind of money that we attract into our life, the finances that we attract. And so I think that that's really important. And know that it's okay to have baggage. It's okay to have those money mindset issues that you're working on, and the stories that we've been passed down through generation about money. But it is also our responsibility to dispel those thoughts and those stories and welcome financial abundance, because it is something we all deserve and we are all worthy of it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think the same, like, financial wise was definitely, first off, the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. I will say that. I've said that before. I will say it again. And it comes up all the time, especially with money, because I see, in our line of work, I see a lot of people who have the abundance down. They do all the practices they're doing, but they have not looked at their money stuff. And that was totally me. That was me. Like, I was doing all I had a business way before I thought about money, and now I'm like, oh, that didn't align at all. No wonder, like, it was kind of a mess. But it's something that sometimes can be the last thing that we look at. But it is super important. And, as this theme of what I've learned in 30 years, it's that to be a good steward of money. We don't want to hoard it. We don't want to this is my tendency before, was just spend it and not think about it. It was like, I don't want to be tied down by that. Like, that's not, spiritual or like, it's like, I don't want to be like, that's just like the physical plane stuff. I don't need to worry about that. Which is super ridiculous. And also like Kylie said, it's energy. Like, money is an exchange of energy. And so when we exchange money for services, like, it's definitely not just a physical plane thing. It's a very energetic thing. And if we don't have it, it's going to make life a lot harder. It's not that, it's like, yes, you could be super broke financially, but still feel super abundant, because abundance isn't just about finances, but it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to take care of yourself. Like, the amount, like, as my income has grown, like, the amount I take care of myself is so much different, like the way that I do and the way I'm able to. And so for me, like, over 30 years, it's just like to be a good steward, to watch where my money's going, to do my books, to pay my taxes, to, all those like kind of boring things, like, become such a sacred act of like responsibility for me now. It's like, it's like I'm taking myself seriously and I can trust myself. I really had that idea that I, needed someone to take care of me for a long time. Like, it was like, well, I'll just like spend the money and I'll be the free spirited person and I'll just hope it all works out at the end of the month. Right. And I was lucky that it did most of the time. I never got myself into like any serious trouble or anything, but I could have. And now that it really comes down to like a maturity, like a willingness to like look at my credit cards. Where's my money going? You know, where is it coming from? And then like, where do I need to adjust it? Right? Like maybe I don't want to spend $5,000 on Uber every year. Right? Like, and so it takes a certain level of bravery. And I know that there's other money stories. My money story is very much like this, like freedom, like just like, well, just spend it. So I was like not a steward, but then there's also people who like kind of hoard money too. So I don't know if I'm talking to you, if you're one of the spenders or one of the savers, but the idea is to be somewhere in the middle, right? For me, it's like, I don't want to spend like crazy, but I also don't want to hoard. So how do I make my relationship with money one of, you know, like my relationship with myself, one of trust, one of responsibility, one of intention, right? And that's come in a ton of different ways. And I've had to rewrite a ton of different stories and do a lot of work. And I still do work every single day on finances, because it's something that was a generational lineage that like I'm breaking. So it's like, I'm not just breaking this for myself, I'm breaking this for my family, you know, because I think that happens a lot with money stuff, is that it's like generational. We have a lot of momentum behind whatever our story is, behind whatever our subconscious actions with money are. And so it does become something that can be really challenging to break. But it is something that for me to be truly healthy and to trust myself, I have to pay a lot of attention to. And that's something I've learned in 30 years with finances. And then my kind of practical or my tip here is like to build a good relationship with it. Treat it like a best friend. What do you do with a best friend? You don't say, I want you to be near me. I want you to be near me. And then say, when you have it, be like, oh, I have too much. Or, you know, it's like, I think it's Jen Sincero who talks about like that relationship where like, and I remember her story about, you know, yeah, if it was a best friend, would you say, I wish I had you. I wish I had you. Now that I have you, I don't want you. You're dirty, right? That's how we treat money. It's like, I want it. I want it. I want it. I want these things. And then when I have it, I feel guilty, or I feel like I need to get rid of it or something like that. And so it's like, that's the tip, is like, just start to build a good relationship with it. Check in on it. Tell it how grateful you are for it. Be appreciative of all it allows you to do, of the freedom. Know that it'll always be there for you, right? Like a good friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. You wouldn't just check in on a good friend like once a month. You know, you need to nurture that relationship kind of.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Spiritual, the last one.
This is kind of a long one. We're going over an hour.
Oh,
Lucky
man.
ducks.
All right. Yes. There's a lot here. It's 30 years, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you want to go first on spiritual?
I'll let you go.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, when I sat down to think about this, the thing that came to mind, you know, like, what have I learned in the last 30 years, is this quote came to mind. It's from Falling Upwards by Jim Rohn. And it's that God has no grandchildren, only children. And what that means to me, and I think what he meant by this statement, is that faith is personal. Like, there is no middlemen. And I think that's, you know, a huge problem with religion and spirituality of the past, is that we're required to have some sort of like middleman, right? It's like we have the guru, or we have the priest, or we have the preacher, or we have, and it's not that we don't need teachers, and that we can't learn from other people who have had experiences spiritually, but I'm done with the packaging of spirituality. I only want the rawness. I only want that connection from my heart to God. I don't want anyone to tell me how to do it, anyone to tell me what it feels like, anyone to tell me what I have to do, that I have to do this ritual or that ritual, or I have to like follow these rules. I want only that connection between myself and God, which is very personal, and it's a very, you can't put it to words. You can't put it to words. And that's what I want for everyone else too. I want them to have an actual firsthand experience with God. They're God's child. We don't, God does not have grandchildren. Okay. He doesn't have like people with, there's no one in between. Right. So for me, that's what spirituality has come to be, is a very personal, mature, relationship to God.
Yeah. I know when before we jumped on, we're like, oh, spirituality, like, how do you even like explain, what we've learned and where we've grown and become more enlightened around that. And I think, it's always there. It's always been there since 30 years ago and beyond. But the ability to tap into it in these 30 years, it's becoming okay with just knowing that, like, whether it's God or whether it's the universe or whatever it is to you, it's all the same. Like, we all believe in a higher power, and we are all constantly connected to that higher power. And because of that, we don't have to worry as much. Like, we just have to be here, and we just have to love. Like, we just have to be here, and we have to experience love and give love and share love. And that is spirituality, is just being that little piece of spirituality upon earth, but always having that connection and always being able to to tap into it and to know that exactly that you are a direct extension of God. And so, or the universe, whatever you want to insert there, you are a direct extension. So of course you deserve only happiness, and of course you deserve abundance, and of course these things. And just like connecting back to that in the morning, middle of the day, at night, and every second, if we need a miracle, knowing that we are provided with that miracle with simply asking. But it is hard to wrap. It is kind of hard to like piece it together and explain the connection that is spirituality, because it's all of us individually, it's all of us together. It's a connectedness, and it's a collective consciousness as well.
Yeah, I think, how I said it in the environmental section, that like we're kind of an immature society. I think we're kind of an immature spiritual society as well. Like, and this isn't like judgment. It's just it's like kind of an observation that I think as we all evolve, like as a society, that like that we see and we evolve personally, that we just start to see that, that way, you're exactly what you're saying, like that it's personal and it's all the time. Like I said, we were joking when we were talking about this, that it's like spirituality, just everything. Like, this encompasses everything. Like, there's no separation. And the other thing that I was going to say, that whenever I explain spirituality to someone who may not have a spiritual practice or not consider themselves spiritual, it's your purpose. It's the thing that's bigger than you, right? It doesn't even have to have the connotation of God, although I will not use that word, because that's what I am talking about. But if that doesn't resonate with you, or you have some other context around it, it's like your purpose, right? We all have to have something that's bigger than us to want to like go on living, like, and so it's such an important aspect of health to have a purpose, to know what that purpose is, to be able to connect into that purpose, and live from that purpose. And that's really what we're talking about.
I think one more thing that I wanted to touch on was, I grew up in a Catholic household. A very strong, one side of my family is very strong Catholic roots. And I feel like people have a lot of shame around not feeling like, oh, I'm not religious, well, I guess I'm atheist. Or like, if I don't practice religion the same way that my family members do, then that's shame on me, and I'm doing something wrong, and I'm not worthy of, or like feeling shame for thinking that I connect with the spirituality. So maybe, you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, Clara, yeah, Kylee, that's what I feel and that's what I connect with. But I can't say I'm spiritual. That just sounds, like there's shame around it. And so what I want to share with you is a story that was a really like beautiful aha moment. And I didn't realize that I was living out my spiritual practice in my day-to-day until I heard this. But my fiance's mom or aunt is a nun. And so she's in her 70s and she's a nun. And one day Matt's mom, trying to gather the story, was talking with this nun, Lorraine, and Lorraine said, oh, do those kids really, are they very religious, or do they have, do they go to church or any? They don't go to church. I can't remember what was said, but Matt's mom actually said, those two are more spiritual, and those two believe in God more than I ever did when I was at their age. And I just thought that was really cool to hear, to think that like just my day-to-day, she picked up and understood that I have such a deep connection to God and to spirit. And she kind of almost explained to the nun, like, they're more spiritual than probably a lot of us. And it's, so I would just want to tell you that I don't even know where I'm going with this, but basically there is no shame around being spiritual. The spirituality is just the most amazing, beautiful thing that we can possibly be on this earth. And at the end of the day, it's just about loving one another.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, I used to feel like I didn't grow up in a spiritual household at all. I think my mom kind of like loves Buddhism and kind of like Eastern stuff, but no like real sense of faith. And I used to think people who had, who talked about faith and God, I'd be like, oh, that's nice, like good for you, kind of like that. But it's like now that I have this, I've had some really challenging things in my life happen, and that's like almost required me. I think if you talk to anyone who has like a deep spiritual connection personally, is because they had something atrocious happen at some point, and they were like, I need something, I need something to get me through this. And that's like grace, right? That's grace when we're in that lowest of low, that rock bottom, and we feel the relief of something. That's, grace. And now I don't know how people even do life without like some sort of faith, right? Because that's got to be a really hard thing to do. Because if you don't have it, it's like, what's the purpose of all of this? I don't know. That would be hard. So hopefully you guys all resonate with this and you're not just like, what are they talking about?
I thought it was a great conversation.
Yeah. So I think that's it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for sticking with us through this. Hopefully it was helpful, and we will talk to you next week.
Mm-hmm.